everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and in this video we are going to go through a setup of Jaws of the Lion. I'm going to show you exactly what to take out of the box and what to push to the side as we move through this setup step by step to begin our adventure inside this campaign specifically for this version of Gloomhaven. The very first thing you're going to find when you open up the box is this Welcome to Gloomhaven sheet, and this is going to help you on your journey into the campaign, what you should remove, what you should add, what you should punch out, and organize. I'm going to do all of this step by step through this page, and then we're going to dive into a campaign together. So without further ado, let's begin. When you open up the box for the very first time, you'll put aside a number of booklets as well as some stickers and a map board. The first booklet to put aside is the Learn to Play guide. You'll also put aside the scenario book, the supplemental scenario book, the glossary for Jaws of the Lion, the map board itself, and the location stickers. Next, you're going to find 6 punch boards full of tokens and monster standees. You're going to want to take these out of the game box, find the set of plastic zip bags as well in the game box, and the plastic tray with its lid. You're going to punch all of these out, and using the plastic bags as well as this tray, you're going to fill them all in the appropriate slots as it states on this sheet right here. So when you're all said and done, all of the monsters are punched out, and per type of monster, they each have their own baggie which they're placed in. You go ahead and place all the tokens as indicated on the Welcome to Gloomhaven sheet inside of this tray as well in terms of condition and status tokens, money, damage, and terrain type tokens. You'll also find at the very end that you have a single of each of these 3 major characters. You can go ahead and put them in a bag together. You'll also find inside the box these 3 dividers, and they are going to be slotted in exactly where the cards are. So new events, these are the events right here, the city events. You can just slot that in like so. We've got the monster attack modifiers, so we'll go ahead and slot that in right here. And we have the available items, which will sit right here. This one right here, this actually was punched out during all of the punch boards that were punched out earlier on in the last clip. So for now, I just placed it on here, but you'll also notice underneath are all the tuck boxes the 4 starting characters start with, depending on which characters you're using, are all right here, as well as the matching icon for the miniature that relates to the character you end up choosing. You got your standees here, you got your monster cards down below, as well as the sleeves for them, and of course, you've got your monster ability cards down here in the bottom right. Now these 4 sealed tuck boxes right here all have letters on them, A, B, C, and D, and you're not going to open those unless the game specifies that you should open those. Next, take out of the box the deck of small red monster ability cards, sort them all by type. You can see it's a 3x4 grid of 12 different types. We've got things like the Giant Viper, the Zealot, the Vermling Raider, for instance, and a number of others. Also take out the monster stat cards and place them nearby. You'll notice that the name on the monster stat card is going to correspond to one of the decks, and this will help you in determining where these cards should be stored, because we just did the storage of the monsters themselves in these bags, and what you'll be doing as a next step is determining which of these decks of cards will go into which of these bags. And you can do that by taking a look at the title on the stat card. This one's Stone Golem, looking at the artwork, matching it up, and then looking at the Stone Golem text right here. These all align, so this deck of cards goes inside of this bag, and you'll do this for all of the decks of cards laying out here in front of you. The other thing to take note of, if you happen to find any cards inside of this ability cards pile when sorting them out that happen to say basic and then Giant Viper, for instance, afterwards, anything with the word basic, just merge them in with the other cards that have similar wording. So basic Giant Viper is one of them. We have a basic Zealot as another one, and we also have a basic Vermling Raider as the last one. When you're done organizing everything into the baggies, you'll notice you'll have all your monster ability cards with the standees or the monster types they relate to. You'll also notice you have duplicates of certain types or keywords, and that would be the Imp and the monstrosity. There are 2 types of monsters for these, so 2 baggies are going to be empty, and that's okay because you'll be using the imp cards with this set of monsters, which is an imp, or this set of monsters, which are also imps. So just remember that. Also for the monstrosities, it could be this set of characters you're using for the monstrosity cards, or potentially the rat monstrosities. Lastly, in regards to these baggies, you'll notice when you punched out the token boards, you've also got these right here. 4 of them relate to the 4 starting characters. The rest of them, which there are 14 of them, relate to the 14 baggies filled with the different enemy types and standees. So you're going to go ahead and place each of these one at a time inside each of the baggies as long as the title is correct. Again, use the monster stat cards if you need to determine based on the visual as well as the title that you're placing the right actual title or name inside the baggie. And that is really the last step of putting together all these baggies to have them organized and ready to go based on what the scenario calls for. They're all organized and you'll only need to grab the ones you actually need for a given scenario. With the monsters and rest of the punch boards now sorted, you're prepared to start learning the game. So now we're going to dive into the Learn to Play guide, which we set aside earlier on in the video. There's also a rules glossary that we can bring back into the equation with the complete set of rules you can easily reference at any time, but it's highly recommended though that you learn to play using the guide, the Learn to Play guide underneath of this book, and use the glossary to look up any rules questions you might have during play. Welcome to Gloomhaven. This game is fully cooperative, which we all know means it can be played completely solo, with players working together to navigate their way through a campaign of scenarios. You will not play it all in one sitting, but it can be easily saved at the end of any single scenario. This book is meant to walk you step by step through the first 5 scenarios of this campaign, after which point you should have all the tools to continue on through the rest of it. It's encouraged that you play as you read this book. Anytime you see this exclamation point icon off to the side, the text will direct you to do something in the game. So let's start by getting out the scenario book. Its front cover contains the introduction to the story of this campaign and will direct you to unlock scenario number 1. Each scenario is meant to be played until successfully completed, and then players will move on to the next scenario. So you'll play through scenario 1, which will then unlock scenario 2, and so on. Now go ahead and read the front cover of the scenario book and refer back to scenario 1 rules here inside of the Learn to Play guide on page number 3 when the scenario book directs you to do so. It will be good to get back to the Sleeping Lion. After a fortnight going up and down the still river chasing a bad lead on a missing blacksmith, you can almost feel the warmth of the inn's hearth when Gloomhaven's walls come into view. You are almost home. To be fair, it's not just a blacksmith. An alarming number of people within the poorer districts of the city have gone missing. Usually nothing comes of it though, just another poor soul forgotten out here on the edge of civilization. The blacksmith's wife, Sandy, however, managed to somehow scrape enough money together to hire you to find her husband. You're not sure where the money came from, but no matter the source, it couldn't have come easy, which makes it doubly painful to return to the city empty-handed. True, Sandy was a little light on the payment, but you are the Jaws of the Lion, one of the most well-known mercenary groups in this backwater dump of a town. Surely it can't hurt to take a charity case every once in a while. Getting good jobs is about maintaining your reputation after all, which is why you really need to get to the bottom of this and not return to the widow with nothing but the calluses on your feet. Also, you probably shouldn't call her a widow to her face, at least not until the fate of the blacksmith has been confirmed. Given, however, that none of those who disappeared have returned, the outlook is grim. As these cheery thoughts pass through your mind, you notice movement up ahead and immediately draw your weapon. The sun has dipped low in the sky, reducing visibility, but you can clearly see some ramshackle wooden barricades blocking the road in front of you. And sure enough, as you cautiously approach the scene, vermlings jump out from behind the obstructions, flashing crude swords and sharp sticks. You have to admit, you are quite tired from the day's journey, but still, these oversized rats certainly picked the wrong group of of travelers to ambush today. You are the jaws of the lion after all, and are always ready to show there is only one outcome for anyone who dares threaten you. Now, as you can see at the bottom of this flavor text, we have a reward here. It says new location, roadside ambush 1 with a B1 beside it. It states down below, if you haven't yet, read the first section of the Learn to Play guide before continuing on to Scenario 1. We're back inside the Learn to Play guide here at Scenario 1 Rules, the very first major section of this Learn to Play guide. It states to start, perhaps you noticed this in the scenario book. Yes, we did. We got a new location, roadside ambush 1, and it states B1 right beside it. So basically what this means, if you've never played Gloomhaven before, but there are stickers inside this box, and you're going to go ahead and find the sticker based on the name roadside ambush and place it in the quadrant once you line it up. So you can see here our very first sticker is going to be in the B1 position, so it'll be in this square right here. So we have the Gloomhaven map right here, and we've also got our location stickers. You can see this one in the top left hand corner states roadside ambush with a little checkbox beside it as well. So we'll go ahead first and just peel this off the sticker sheet. Now if you don't want to place the stickers on here, that's a-okay, but you got to remember these stickers are permanent. So if you want to do this by cutting it out and maybe putting some sticky tack behind it, just like that, the roadside ambush location number 1 sticker has been placed on the map. You'll see the sticker even overlaps over on the side as well, but still when placed perfectly will look like it blends right in. And as you go through the campaign, you're going to unlock more and more locations and scenarios to move through, a total of 25 at least listed on the outside of the box, and again all represented in stickers, so this map will truly come to life as you move through your campaign. So obviously these stickers represent the scenarios available to you, but there will be forks in the road where you'll have multiple stickers unlocked and you'll have to decide which location you want to go to for your next encounter or scenario. The next decision to make is around your characters and what character you're going to control. Now if you're playing the game solo, then you're going to have to control 2 characters. So I threw this question back to my Patreon community in order to get the popular 2 that were the most wanted in terms of seeing them on the table, and out of the 4, of which we have the Demolitionist right here, we have the Red Guard here, the Voidwarden over here, and Hatchet up here. The 2 that were the runaway leaders in the voting were Hatchet and the Demolitionist. So along with the character boxes, you're going to want to also grab the character miniature boxes that match the exact same icon. You'll also want to grab the initiative order tokens, and that's these tokens right here. Very easy to figure out which ones are for which characters. This one right here states right on it, Demolitionist. The other states Hatchet, and the symbols on them match the icons on their character boxes. Inside the 2 boxes for every character in the game, you're going to find a miniature for it, as well as the character board. You'll find some tokens specific to the character, as well as the order token. You'll also find cards, a big deck of them that don't say the word halt on them. These are the cards you're going to want to be going through first when you first begin your adventures. And then this standard deck of modifier cards right here, again with a smaller deck that you're not supposed to open until it states to. So for these 2, we don't need them as part of the initial setup, so we'll remove them and put them back in the box for now. Be sure to also grab a dial for your character as well. Inside the standard deck of cards that doesn't say halt on it, find the player reference card, this one right here, as well as 6 cards that have the A letter right underneath the title of the card. There should be 6 of them. The rest of the standard size cards can go back to the character box. Also, don't forget to keep your character sheet close by, as you'll be using this throughout your campaign. So now we're going to go ahead and set up the play area using all of the character materials we just went through. So we'll talk about the ones here on the table in front of us. So each player, well in my case, I'm playing solo, so I'm controlling 2. I'm going to place my character mats out. So I have the Demolitionist and Hatchet. And we also want to have our player reference cards. Both of them are the same, but I'm going to place one on each side of the reference card so I can reference both sides at the same time. 6 level A ability cards should be placed out for either character. We've got those dead center in the middle in piles. The attack modifier decks are all set up. Hit point dial is there. The HP side of your dial, which is this red side over here, currently set to 0. You're going to take a look at level number 1 for the character you're controlling. Look underneath and it will tell you how many hit points your character will start with. So in this case, this dial for Hatchet should be 8. Hatchet's HP is now set to 8, and checking out the Demolitionist character board, underneath the 1 there's also an 8, so the Demolitionist will also have its dial set to 8 as well. Next, grab the scenario book, place it in the center of the table. This book shows the scenario map, which consists of a number of hexes where the scenario will play out. Next, each player can now place their character's figure on any one of the starting hex icons in the scenario book. And the icon for a starting hex is these door with arrow icons. As you can see here, there's 4 of them for this scenario. And again, only one character can occupy one hex. As I'm playing solo, I get to place both of my characters. Hatchet and the Demolitionist are now in one of the starting hexes each. Next, retrieve the zip bag of Vermling Raider monsters and remove the cardboard standees, the large square stat card, which is this one right here, and the initiative order token. For this scenario, the red monster cards, the smaller ones inside the baggie, are not needed. Now we're going to insert the larger stat card for the monster, the Vermling Raider, into one of the 6-section envelopes from the box. When placing the stat card inside the envelope, ensure that the number 1 is facing outwards in the top left. And place it next to the scenario book within easy reach, and so that you can reference it quite easily throughout gameplay. Now we're going to go ahead and populate the scenario with Vermling Raiders, but first we need to know how many of them and of what type are going to be entering into this scenario based on the number of characters that we're using. And we are using 2 characters. You can easily distinguish this by taking a look at the icon right here. Not only do you see what type of enemy should be on this hex to start, but you also see 3 bars. The top bar is for 2-player, the second bar for 3-player, and the third bar for 4-player. As we're playing with 2 characters, we only care about the top bar. When you see gold, it means that that particular type of enemy is going to come in with a gold standee, meaning they'll be elite. So this one right here will be an elite. In the top bar section of these 3, we have white for this exact same type of enemy, the Vermling Raider, but this one is going to come in with a white standee and will be considered a regular unit. The hex in the bottom right hand corner of this scenario is a great example of how the game scales up to match the number of characters that are playing, and as all the other icons present on the hexes where enemies would spawn to start off a scenario, it does still have 3 bars. The top bar for 2-player shows a black shade. When you see that, there's no monster that will be placed in that particular hex. So for this upcoming playthrough and for this setup right now, being that I'm controlling 2 characters, no enemy will be placed in this hex. If I was playing with 3 characters, then you'll see there is a white bar, which means a normal monster would actually start in that position. And if I was controlling 4 characters, then we'd have an elite monster showing up in that position. All of the Vermling Raiders are now in place for a 2-player game based on the legend for each of the hexes. The other thing to note is there is a numerical value on each of the enemies in the game, unless of course they're a boss or a unique boss. In this case, there are multiple of the same type, so they all have a number. It's important when placing these out on the map that you don't put them out 1, 2, 3, and 4. You actually randomize the numbers and randomly grab them to plot them into the different positions. This is a good time to place the initiative order token with the other initiative order tokens for the 2 heroes. Next, take the plastic token tray and put it next to the scenario book on the right hand side. Go inside the box and find the 20 card deck of attack modifier cards labeled M. There will be an icon with the letter M right in the bottom left hand corner. Find all 20 of those, give them a good shuffle, and place them face down. And that's the last step of the setup. With the setup complete that quickly, we're now going to talk about some of the important things inside the scenario book, which you're looking at right now on the table, so you can become more familiar with certain aspects of it. There's a lot of important information in the scenario book that you should note. The first thing is the scenario number right up here, the title, and city map board location. You'll find the goal of the scenario underneath the title. In this case, is to kill all the enemies. When this is achieved, the scenario has been successfully completed. A scenario key can be found in this area of the scenario book, and it lists what type of monsters from the game box and what tokens and tiles from the token tray will be needed to set up the map. In this case, it's really straightforward. It's just the Vermling Raiders. Each scenario also has a map layout. For this scenario, this just shows that the 2-page spread in the scenario book is sufficient to depict the scenario, but future scenarios may also show that a separate page from the supplemental scenario book that we put aside during the beginning of this video is needed. There's an introduction section as well as a special rules section. You'll want to go over these before you begin the scenario. For my purposes in this setup video, we'll skip past this. However, the actual booklet itself states you should actually consume this information right now. For me, I will wait until we get into the overview and part 1 video. On this page is also a conclusion section, which is only read when the scenario has been completed successfully. At the very bottom down here, we have the reward section. Again, this is something you will gain on completion of the scenario successfully. Around the scenario, you will find blue boxes which house tips inside of them. I highly recommend that you consume these tips, as they're going to help you in your learning as you go through the campaign. And as you go on and on, these tips will start to thin out as you will have gotten a better understanding of how the game plays out. But they can also house specific tips for the scenario that are important to note. So for instance, you can see here this tip: all hexes with a green border are obstacles and cannot be entered. The Demolitionist can destroy them though, at which point a destruction token is placed on the obstacle and it becomes a normal hex. This is the kind of information that I want to hear, being that I'm using that character. There's also other tip boxes like ones we mentioned earlier. This one right here states place each of your character figures on one of the 4 indicated entrance hexes. Again, giving you a heads up of what's allowed and what isn't. The last thing that's worth mentioning is wall designations on the map. The hexes of each scenario are contained within a thick, dark border line. These lines are the walls of the scenario and obviously can't be crossed. And that's going to wrap up the setup for Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. I really hope this helps you get the game to the table even quicker than it's already streamlined from its Kickstarter big brother. Next up, join me for an overview and part 1 as we begin Roadside Ambush together. Thanks everyone for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.